I'm going to go into a little different topic around authenticity and humility because I do this segment purely for Dan Norden. No, not at all. Dan, you just listen because this is important for you, but it's not because your mind is more analytical, and so you won't get into any of these unnecessary states of being. So there's a lot of there's a lot going on right now in the world with mental illness,
Mhm.
depression. I read a post today by somebody who's well known in the hobby saying, "I can't do this anymore. I don't want to live. I can't climb out of this no matter what. There's no good news." As a young guy, but somebody who's got some level of maturity and wisdom and experience in life, you know, what do you have to say about that? Like I feel so bad when I read that stuff. It's not just one person. I read it in and you can see the underlying vibes. You know, what do you think that's from? Is there anything more we can do as a community to support these folks? Because one day they're selling something and selling a bunch of cars. The next day it's like, I don't want to be here. And it really is troubling for me as a dad of, 8 and a grandparent of several. And, to be an old guy in this hobby and read this stuff and say, I just wish I could help more. And a lot of these folks say, don't even bother me. I'm just going through it myself. But they're certainly saying it because they're reaching out in some way.
I mean, it's a tough topic. Obviously, there's not going to be a general answer necessarily. There's people with chemical imbalances and all kinds of stuff. Like so, to give you kind of at least a reference, because I've kind of talked about this before. My wife is a PhD level marriage family therapist. So like depression and like that's more marital issues. But I mean, there's people who have severe chemical imbalances that are just therapy for the rest of their life, or is really all that can kind of maintain a constant state of like, okay, I'm still here. But
Mhm.
if I'm talking generally, I would say the hard part for me when I see like, or when I hear you say like someone's like, I can't do this anymore, I can't keep going. I think that social media is definitely one of the biggest things because where my brain goes, not that I don't have sympathy for whoever this individual is, but you took time to purposely type something out to share it with social media to bring attention to it so people would I mean I don't want to it's hard. I don't want to assume what their intentions were, but like I
Yeah.
would assume to bring attention to you so they people would feel sorry for you and message you and you could get those messages. My thing is truly depressed like people they recluse. They go back and they just they stay away from the world. They don't try to get the world to pay attention to their depression usually from just the people that I've known who've struggled with mental illness, things like that. Overall, I mean, if I'm talking about better things, I mean, I think the two main things that I think of that have bettered my life in general, and we've all had ebbs and flows of ups and downs in our lives. You stay alive long enough, it's just going to happen. So removing myself from social media in a personal level was like one of the best decisions ever because you're not just sitting there doom scrolling. You're not getting to the point where you see all these people posting stuff and you start believing that it's real. I mean, whether you think it's actually making an impact on you, these companies literally like you are the product. That's why you don't pay for it. When you don't pay for something, you are the product. So you're literally being almost, I don't want to use the term brainwashed, but I can't think of anything better. Like your behaviors are being affected by that. It's anytime you sit down with a meal and you go, wow, this meal looks amazing. And the first thing that goes in your head is like, I should take a picture. That's proof right there. So I think that social media definitely causes a lot of people to think their lives are a lot worse than they actually are. I think the other thing is too is like diet and like a lot of people don't talk about that. Like if you eat crappy food, you are going to feel crappy. Like so if you're just literally like using oh I'm so busy I'm just gonna pound Doritos or like drink soda and like do whatever all the time, like you're going to feel bad. So like you have to kind of I think if you can take care of and check some of these boxes and keep yourself healthy physically and also like keep your mental health under control when it comes to social media, I think if you can just start with those two things and you still have a really, really intense problem, I think you should absolutely get some sort of levels checked or look at that. But I think also therapy is the biggest thing. Like I've done personal therapy, not because I was on like rock bottom or anything, but I continue to see someone, every couple of weeks just to keep my sanity. Like, Dave, we're, we're all married here. it's hard to complain to the same person constantly where they're like, I don't want to hear this anymore. It's nice to have a third party, like just to kind of unload your stuff on and be able to discuss that on more of just a, you know, non-judgmental level. And I will advocate for people, especially guys, because it's just not common for us to like accept therapy. Like just go and talk your stuff out. You feel so much better. And I literally did that for, you know, personal growth, professional growth, like just for me to be in a good level headset to say like it's okay to like feel these things, and it's not looked down upon, or you know, you're not just complaining, like you're just trying to share the issues with your life and understand them better. And there's nothing wrong with that. So I would say those three things: delete your social media if you can, as best as you can, or at least take a 30-day hiatus from it. Don't even look at it. Um, your diet is huge, and then yeah, just mental health, like therapy. If you can afford therapy, you should be just doing it just because. Don't wait for rock bottom. Like you will see an impact in your life and feel so much better if you're able to do that. And I think that with all the issues going on, I think it's because people are neglecting those three things primarily.
And
Long rant,
people
but
will
hopefully that answers that.
people will notice that my social media has been empty for the last couple of weeks, rather than me posting and just complaining about all of the stuff that's been going on. It's been a rough couple of weeks on my end, and yeah, stepping away from stuff. Like David, you messaged me and was like, "Hey Dan, I know we haven't done a podcast in a while. Why aren't you doing your usual opening videos?" And I was like, I just needed, like, obviously I lost a lot of work with the laptop issue, but I could have like just jumped back in and started doing videos again and stuff. But I was just like, I just need a couple of weeks between that, and we've had our dogs in a rough shape. Like I've started listing some of my PSA 10s for sale because I was on the fence about selling those anyway, and now it's like, oh, this poor bugger needs some surgery. So it's just been like, it's funny. Yes, I don't want to post Pokemon stuff right now. It was like I need a
Well,
couple of weeks.
and not to cut you off, but that's like a prime example of like you felt these feelings, so you pulled away from it. You
Yeah.
reclused yourself. So like thinking about like I can't take it. Like if you were gone, you're like I can't take this anymore, guys. Like please, like I don't know. I just see a difference in that behavior where yours is a little bit more of like what I would expect.
Yeah.
So like that kind of goes into that social media topic. But
yeah,
sorry, I
If
ran
you
to a
want to
lot. I
read,
didn't mean to talk for a second.
if you want to read my crazy ramblings when I go manic, you have to subscribe to my Patreon.
yeah, that's great. So it always turns back to that.
It's not even a
Yeah, you
joke.
know
There
what?
is genuinely some horrific stuff on there. If you want to delve back into it, I did
What
use
bothers
Patreon.
me, Dan,
Patreon's more of a diary than just like Instagram. On Patreon, it's like, if you want to pay $1 a month, I'll tell you how I really feel about situations and people.
Laura has had, his wife, Colt, has had so many medical issues. I can't even begin to tell you. Not once would he have sold one of his tens to help her with the financial aspect, but the dog, the little bugger that needs surgery, that's when the stuff gets sold. Make sure she doesn't watch a
Oh my
thing on here
gosh.
because I am disappointed in you wholeheartedly. And dye the hair more pink because I miss the old, more flashy color. Colt, this
Her
is
medical issues have
absolutely
been
what?
her medical issues have been stuff where she's just been like in bed for a few days and
I'm
has
just
been
teasing. She's fine. She's got no
she's
medical issues.
she's
Have
never
three
needed
quarters of the stuff
major
I make up,
surgery.
I'm making up. I'm making the whole thing up, Dan. Don't listen to a thing I say. Nobody else does. Colt, fantastic advice. I had no idea what your wife did for a living. It's amazing. It's great. It dovetailed in perfectly. I would only add the following thing, and you said it in your own way. Is for those of you that are suffering at all, number one, prioritize your health. And you said that, Colt. It just, prioritize, because whether or not it's physical or mental or whatever, because if you do, then you're not afraid. Like I often feel like this is a really bad example and this doesn't go. I'm older now, so I'm through the rough years, not that they don't happen in my age, but I'm through the rougher years I've had. And so, there are times I feel so much pressure as I continue to decide what's going to happen with this collection one day. Because people all around me, my friends and clients, they're dying. They're dying. One by one, they're just dropping 50s and 60s and 70s. And so that gives me a sense of pressure because I have obligations to my family. And sometimes that pressure builds up and I'm like, I can't take this because I'm doing this and I'm trying to homeschool my son and we're trying to do this, whatever's going on. So I have to just step back and go, you know what? So I don't do any social media posting or I don't sell something for a week or two or three or four. but I go back into myself and my family and regain that foundational ground, that stronghold, that footing, so you're not slipping down the canyon anymore. So, but I think it's really interesting when you said a lot of folks reach out, they not knowing what to do, almost for that attention. Maybe it's not so much real as it could or should be or might be. But I always say to those people, if it becomes real, you do need support. You need to reach out and
Sure.
not say, I can't tell you what it's about. You better start telling somebody what's it about. And that's a therapist or your significant other or somebody or anybody that can help you navigate through, because you are absolutely right. Social media has changed everything about this country and about people in this country and about emotions that we experience in such a short period of time. And because of how quick that's happened and is happening, folks really don't know exactly how to cope with it, and when is the time to shut it all down, etc. So
Well, what's also scarier is if you're young and you've grown up with it and you've lived in a world that you've never lived in a world without it. There are people alive who've lived in a world never without social media. You almost can't escape the way it makes you feel because you've never known the world without it affecting you, which is crazy to think about. Just the algorithms and the people and like the way people engage. I'm lucky enough to have started like from dial up, and then I got like invited to join Facebook because I was in high school and like a college person invited me. I was like, oh, so cool. Like I lived through and was a part of all of that. But I could never be swayed like a 16-year-old now can. That's why I think we see such a spike now, especially young people. It's like everybody has a condition now. Everybody's depressed or anxiety or blah, 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 blah. But it's like, it's hard to sift through what's a real, and not that I don't want to put it out there that I'm like questioning these people who reach out for help, because I agree with you, Dave. I think if you got to find some support, maybe that's the only way those people know how to do it, like is
yeah.
online and through social media, because that's what they've seen. But I think the thing is, it's hard to sift through like the real, true people who are depressed, because the behaviors that we've seen historically do not match up with the way that people are so expressive and
Express
ready to
themselves.
share it now. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's so different. And I think that sure, culture changes, but I think the way that we react to those type of conditions or feelings that tends to be a constant, I would imagine. But again, sorry, Dan, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I know you were about to say something.
Yeah, I was just saying, in terms of like when you talk about how you would expect people more to move away from social media rather than make these posts of, oh, I'm feeling depressed, I'm having these feelings. We are in there is a situation where people who are very, very active on social media, especially if it's tied to their livelihood, like people who make their living doing YouTube and stuff like that, they can't just take the break with no message because their viewers feel that they have the right to know. I'm sort of paraphrasing what someone else. There's a podcaster I listen to a lot called Ian Boldsworth. He does a lot of stuff on his Patreon. He does a lot of podcast stuff about. He's a comedian, but he talks about mental health and stuff a lot. He's described it as people have such an entitlement to information at all times right now that, like, say there's someone like, say, Leon Hart. If Leon Hart just decided to stop posting on social media for 2 weeks, he would be getting thousands of messages of where are you, where are you, where are you. He couldn't just take that step away. He would have to go on and make some sort of public statement. Like you do see it when, but it is especially bigger amongst YouTubers and stuff, where if they need to take a mental health break from social media, they first have to do that last post. They have to do that last video explaining why there's going to be that break. I mean, I know I said I stepped away. I did do a short video on my channel, like just explaining where I was going, like why there was going to be no videos for a couple of weeks, because if not, it leads to there being more demand for engagement. I know I'm obviously on a much, much smaller level than some of these other people, but
I
it
get
would
what you're
just,
saying, though.
yeah, it would just lead to there'd be way more pressure and way more anxiety and stuff inducing from that if they don't make that post, because their viewers and stuff, a lot of them will feel entitled to know, I'm your viewer, I'm the reason you have wages, I'm the reason you can do this. I have the right to know why there's no video. I have the right to know what's going on in your life. I think that's a big thing for a lot of people too, is just they want to get that message out there of, like, this is what's happening, please don't question me about this anymore, because
I
they
guess I
know that
just
people
because
will.
there's different ways that people, I guess, and again, there's not one. We're probably all right here, like just bringing up all these examples, but from my experience of people who I know who've been like clinically depressed, apathy is like one of the number one things. It's why like traditionally they sleep all day. Like they wouldn't even necessarily feel the anxiety of having to like be questioned about it because they're so separated and apathetic toward like
The words
life
are,
in
I
general.
don't care. I mean,
That's
there's lots
yeah.
of times I just, like, my wife will look at me and she'll say something and I go, honey, I do not care. And it's just, you're going through that 2 or 3 day period when everything's hitting you the wrong way. And you're like, just this isn't the time. I don't care what, when and somebody wants you to respond and they heighten the level of, argumentative, whatever it is, anybody. And you're like, I can't, I don't care. So that's that apathy you're talking about that drives
Yeah.
you away. Yeah.
Or it couldn't get any worse. And like
Yes.
you almost like subconsciously test that because then you start to feel something. Usually like people who are depressed, they don't feel, I mean, they feel, but it's like they're very numb to things. So like even the anxiety inducing, like, where are you? Where are you? Like, it's almost like stepping back and leaning into that I don't care. That's also a way for them to kind of feel, oh, people might want me back. I don't know. And again, we could slice that like 1,000 different ways, but just from my experience, usually true apathy, like in its purest form, is what I've seen. But again, I could be wrong. I'm not a YouTuber. It's a grueling job, and social media pays your bills. Like whoever does that, like I get that those type of people like are going to probably have to experience that differently. But if it's truly to the level that I've seen it, which could be just maybe a more severe degree, those people tend to just disappear. And they don't care what those repercussions are because they don't care about anything.
That was a clip from Koffee Talks, a Pokemon card collecting podcast. Check out the full episode here or see a playlist of all our episodes. We hope you enjoy!